independent publishing community can be a really interesting space. There are great people, people I love, people I genuinely admire, and then there are the people I'm going to be talking about in this video. This video is not representative of everyone, but in a community that should be a haven for creativity and connection, it should be a space where authors can share their stories without constraints of traditional gatekeeping within traditional publishing. Yet within this space, a troubling toxic culture has taken root, and most notably, although it is everywhere, in young adult, YA, and the romance writing communities. What should be an environment of support often devolves into cliques, gatekeeping, and a lack of respect for different perspectives, and ultimately descends into madness. This video is well researched, and I want to thank a certain demented Irish podcast host for inspiring it and going into the deep dive that I've been doing for the last few months, asking questions, going into spaces and discords. It's been fascinating and eye-opening. So let's talk about it. This is my observations. This is an opinion. If you don't like my opinion, that's fine. But if you do, like, sub, share this video, and consider joining my Patreon and becoming a channel member for early access and exclusive content you will not get anywhere else. Back in 24, I had some very weird interactions with a independent podcast book person on the internet, or as I refer to her, the demented Irish woman. Now, she completely inspired this, her and her ilk and her followers, in this deep dive. I started talking to people, posing as other people, doing some research into these circles in ways that was amazing. And I have to, despite her feelings towards me, I have to thank her for inspiring this video, but I won't name her because I don't want to give her any publicity. But just know, I know your secrets. And they're quite fun secrets. So, indie publishing. This is a twofold thing with indie publishing. YA and romance are two of the most prominent genres in the independent publishing landscape. There's massive audiences and they foster a fan base that can be amazing but also very cult-like, making them the prime spaces for indie authors to thrive. But with the prominence comes an undercurrent of problems that plague many communities, many different places, and it's always interesting to watch them. It's interesting to delve into that side of things and see these issues, but they just seem to be more prominent here. There is a strong culture of public shaming within this. These YA and romance spaces are notorious to call out culture, whether it's a perceived misstep of representation, a disagreement over genre conventions, or even a poorly worded tweet, or someone getting review bombed by the community for writing a book about a character who goes from downright evil to a change of heart and finding redemption. It's fascinating and often makes some very interesting drama across booktube, book talk, book podcasts, and writing spaces. It's absolutely fascinating. Authors can often find themselves at the centre of public shaming. The toxic environment creates this climate of fear, where writers are far more worried about being cancelled or doxed, and I'm not joking on that one, than telling an authentic story. They must not offend, they must not make people think. Everything must be good and hunky-dory, because many people in the community don't like characters who are not perfect from the get-go. And you see this a lot, gatekeeping disguised as inclusivity. While these communities are often touted as inclusive, they can be and are very exclusionary. Writers who do not conform to the dominant trend, whether that's a specific trope, a stylistic choice, or an ideological viewpoint, are either ostracized or dismissed. This gatekeeping stifles creativity and discourages new voices from entering the space. YA and romance circles especially The writers' circles often function like high school cliques. Success in these genres can sometimes be more dependent on who you know than the quality of your work, and that's being really honest. It's fascinating to watch and it's fascinating to see, and I'm just going to clarify, this video is not about everybody. This is about a very small but very vocal minority within these groups that tend to be the most cry-bullied you will ever see in your life. Cry-bullies are fun. They're my favourite type of person. It's fascinating to witness. Authors form tight-knit groups that promote each other's works. Who can rub my back and I'll rub yours. It's very much like I'll promote your work if you promote mine, and it's a constant circle jerk. The problem is no one can come into these circles. You see podcasts, book talk, book Twitter talking about the same books by their friends on a loop. And yes, while networking is vital to any industry, this cliquey mentality often results in a lack of diversity in the stories that get attention. And you end up with writers promoting books that very much like their own, and you see that a lot. The emphasis on meeting specific expectations, whether it's adhering to genre conventions or representing certain groups in an air quotes acceptable way, means that many authors feel creatively stifled. Writers who stray from these unspoken rules risk backlash regardless of intentions or the quality of their work. And in a space where people talk about the love of literature and the love of books over and over again, almost ad nauseum, the lack of basic comprehension and basic understanding of historical viewpoints, cultural context, and so on, everything is problematic. I'll pick on a classic novel. You can't read Wuthering Heights with a modern eye, and you can't read many Great Expectations or other books, or any books set in the past, through a modern eye. Often these books are representative of the time, the viewpoints, and how they were written, by who they were written. They're representative of the culture of the time. In an age where the slightest misstep will get you branded an alt-right writer or on a whisper network, which do exist, and I've been very privy to them, it's actually quite disgusting about what many of these people say about many of the people that they're so-called friends or other writers. It almost feels like a pay-to-play mentality, and it's fascinating to witness, and kind of sad as well. This toxic culture is especially harmful to new writers. Writers entering the indie publishing world are often greeted with overwhelming pressure to conform to the community norms. Many feel forced to walk on eggshells, afraid that one wrong move could lead to ostracization or public backlash, and being ostracized by the people that are meant to be promoting your work. At the end of the day, it's fascinating to witness, but also it's kind of sad. And this is coming from people that I know firsthand. This environment not only discourages new voices, but also creates a sense of disillusionment amongst writers who believe in the promise of indie publishing as a space for freedom and innovation, rather than a space of control and silencing and bullying. And there are many people that portray themselves as, I'm just here, I support everyone, who are shameless bullies. I've seen these messages, screenshots of Discords, discussions that many of these people have had, and knowing some of these secrets is fascinating. But it's been quite interesting in certain writers' groups on Facebook, just talking to people and saying what they've experienced and seeing what they've been witness to. Now, how did we get here? How did all of this start? Honestly, I think social media amplification, platforms like Twitter and TikTok have become the center of the indie publishing world. While these platforms can help authors connect to readers, they also amplify negativity and drama, turning small disputes into public spectacles. Or as a friend of mine put it, baboons at the zoo throwing their feces at each other for dominance. It's fascinating to witness, but often it must be how the Romans felt of those gladiatorial matches, watching the spectacle of people rip each other to shreds. and there is a spectacle to it. Writers also often surround themselves with like-minded individuals, and while that can be a good thing, it does create echo chambers where dissenting voices are silenced or ignored. Anything remotely negative is a problem. Performative activism is also another problem. Many people feel pressured into tweeting or making certain comments and having certain discussions, because if they don't, they might be viewed as bad, or at worse, or just told off for not having an opinion. It's fascinating to witness, and I've seen these passive-aggressive emails and DMs from well-known people myself sent to people that I know, and it's eye-opening. And there is definitely a pressure to perform. The visibility of indie publishing means that authors are constantly in the public eye, leading to a performative culture, where appearances, tapping on to the previous point, matter more than being authentic, and you see it a lot. You see a lot of this stuff happen, and a lot of these things go down, and there are moments where I do wonder how these people function in real life. At best, they need a reality check. At worst, they need a lobotomy. That's me being honest. I don't think anything can be done. I don't think it's even worth saving at this point. Certain people in these communities are so loud, so dominating. The slightest bit of criticism, the world ends, and they fall apart. A negative review on Goodreads, or Twitter, or BookTok, or BookTube will lead to them having a public meltdown and crying victim that they're just being harassed over a negative review. When really, they're not. It's just a negative review, and not everyone's going to like your work. The best thing I can say is don't read it. You can always switch off, you can always go away. That's it. Put your books out there, do what you need to do, and don't read it. If you are not strong enough to take criticism, maybe you shouldn't make art. Because two go hand in hand. But maybe there is a generation, especially Gen Z and the 20-somethings, that genuinely any form of criticism to them is world-ending, and I find that also fascinating in terms of behavioural psychology. But seeing everything that's gone down and seeing the stuff that's happened, I do wonder. This is not just true of the indie field, this is not just true of YA and romance, but it's very, very true of many things. And you see it a lot. There are some great people that I know firsthand that are genuinely amazing, and there are people that I've interacted with, demented Irish women and her ilk, that just make me realise that this space can be revolting. And honestly, I don't think anything can help, because social media amplifies voices, rewards mental illness, and honestly just leads to just narcissism. So, who knows? Maybe I'm just a doomer, maybe I'm just a nihilist, but let's be real. I'm not paying for your overpriced coaching sessions and marketing packages. I'm not going to beg you for attention or reviews. Because it's all just an illusion. It's toxic and insular and just not good. Anyway, look for the right people, look for the best people, and we'll talk later. Bye.